Let's talk about whether Dominic Cummings should stay or should go. 39 Tory MPs, we understand, have now called for Dominic Cummings to go. Three-quarters, apparently, privately are saying they don't support him. Up to 9 cabinet ministers have privately said he should go. The 1922 committee, the backbench committee of MPs, is being urged to investigate. A new opinion poll says 66% of people want him to resign. 63% say he should be sacked. By the way, that includes 55% of Tory voters, and 80% say he did break the lockdown rules. Should Dominic Cummings still be in his job today?
Yes, I think he should. The easiest thing in politics is just to agree, and the easiest thing for Boris Johnson to do would have been to have sacked him days ago. The fact that this has gone on for 4 days from when the story first broke on Friday. And quite honestly, Julia, I mean, my first reaction on Friday when I saw the story come out was I was angry and disappointed and felt let down, and yeah, he's got to go. But half of that story unravelled within a couple of days.
Which bits?
The stuff about him being his family being approached and warned by the police about his movements during the lockdown. That wasn't true. The fact that they were saying he was 2 and 3 visits to Durham over a 2-3 week period. That wasn't true. And quite honestly, the lie was halfway around the world as always before the truth had got its boots on. So the easiest thing, even at that, was for Boris to sack him. The fact that he didn't, and given the fact that Boris would be more appraised of all the facts than I was sitting up in lockdown in North West Leicestershire, made me think there's something going on here. And the way the media have gone after him, I mean, it's interesting that Keir Starmer's not actually, I didn't come out asking for his head until I think yesterday, when you'd got so many Labour MPs had been caught flouting the lockdown. Another word had been said. It really.
What do you mean so many? I mean, Stephen Kinnock made a visit. He said to deliver some essential items to his father Neil Kinnock and stayed for the birthday outside at 2 metres apart. I've got to say, I remember at the time defending that. I didn't think that it was a particular problem. And another MP, I think, attended a funeral, and there was quite a big outcry about that at the time. But this is different. Those aren't Labour MPs who were making the policy on lockdown. They're not in government.
Well, what I'd say, Julia, is Dominic Cummings, he was in a situation, and I don't doubt that with the benefit of hindsight, he wishes now that, knowing with hindsight that his wife wasn't too ill to look after their very small child, he wishes he'd stopped in London.
Well, no, that's not. No, Andrew, that's not true. He was asked, does he regret what he did? He said he doesn't regret. He said categorically he does not regret what he did. And I'm sorry, it's quite clear. The polling is very, very clear. 80% of people. No, he has said. No, he's asked. He was asked, do you regret what you did? He had the opportunity to say, look, in hindsight, what I did was I wouldn't have done it. I made mistakes. I was panicking. He didn't say any of that. He totally justified everything that he did. Now, I think the key question that was asked in this poll for the Mail was, do you believe he broke lockdown rules? 80% say yes, they believe he did break lockdown rules. So there are plenty of people who are saying he shouldn't resign, but they still think that we, the British public, are being taken for fools by the pretense by both Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock, and all the other cabinet ministers and MPs like you who are defending him, saying, he didn't do anything wrong. He did. If he had come out early on and said, look, I'm really sorry. Look, I was in a panic. People perhaps might have forgiven him. But the reality is we are being taken for fools by somebody who clearly thought the rules weren't for him.
I don't think that's the case. And I think what you've seen throughout this saga, which has dragged on far too long, the country needs to move on, is that for those people who disagree with Mr Cummings personally, and there are plenty of people in the Conservative Party. Bear in mind, he's not a member of the Conservative Party. He never joined the party. And so there's plenty of enmity for him in my party. Those people who disagree with his politics, who don't like the Conservative government he's working for, and you've got people who don't like Brexit. And for those people, it doesn't matter what explanation Dominic Cummings gives. It will never
He's
be...
a hate figure. No, I agree with you. Andrew, absolutely. No, I completely understand that. However, majority of Tory voters and a majority of Leave voters also feel he should go. You will not in the world find a bigger fan of Dominic Cummings and what he did for Brexit and what he did and what he did in education when he worked for Michael Gove as Education Secretary, what he wants to do in terms of shaking up this country, shaking up the establishment. I am 100% on board everything the guy wants to do. I think the government will be weaker without him. I would worry about Brexit without him. All of that. And yet, I think the principle that the governing class obey the same rules as the governed is so important in a democracy. It's one of the reasons I'm a Brexiteer is because of that. I don't want people who think they know better than me and think they don't have to obey the same rules as me in charge of what I can and can't do. That is why people are angry. There is a media class that hates him. There are a whole lot of the Tory former cabinet ministers who come out are all Remainers. They absolutely loathe and despise him. No question at all. I don't. I think he's brilliant. I still think he's wrong. And I think when people are wrong, and they damage the message in a pandemic, I think they should go.
Well, Dominic Cummings is not elected. He doesn't stand for office. He's an employee of the government.
Then it's up to Boris Johnson, isn't it? So do you think it's worth Boris Johnson expending all this political capital?
What you're saying, Julia, is anybody who works for your programme makes a mistake at all, they should be sacked.
No.
By public acclaim, they should be sacked.
No, because the people who work on this programme don't make the rules about what millions of other people can do, whether or not they can go to their mother's funeral or visit their brand new... Yes, he does. He sat in on the SAGE committee.
Boris isn't making the rules. He's observing and reporting back to the Prime Minister.
He helped make the rules.
Well, you said he made the rules. Boris, he may put forward policy. Advisors advise. Ministers decide.
Yeah, okay. So ultimately, the decision is that of the Prime Minister, isn't it? So this is the Prime Minister. Okay, and I say, is it worth the Prime Minister using up all this political capital to keep his advisor?
And that is a decision for the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister will be held to account for that decision ultimately. But that's a decision for the elected Prime Minister.
Yes, and is the Prime Minister making the right decision?
Is the Prime Minister making the right decision?
By keeping him.
I think the Prime Minister has made a decision, and we will be held to account for that in due course. We have yet to see what will happen, whether Cummings stays, whether he ultimately goes, and how that will affect whether we deliver government policy. The Prime Minister thinks, at the moment, that he's worth the political capital being expended. But the media will not accept that decision. They will not let go because this has turned into a witch hunt. And you've never seen the media fix on this one person like that. He's not elected. He's a public official. He's a dedicated person. His whole family were ill. He was seriously ill. His wife was ill. His baby went to hospital. And he wanted to return to work at a time of a national emergency as soon as he was cleared by the medics to do so. If Dominic Cummings, who's a critical worker, the very key of the government's policy to deliver on the COVID-19 policy, if he had actually been a doctor who'd been infected in a hospital, convalesced with his family, they'd all been ill, and he was rushing to get back to a hospital to carry on his work, we wouldn't be having this conversation, Julia, and that's unfair.